The best recap of Husker sports. Husker Rewind.
Welcome to the circus.
Here's one out, deep right sideline. 50-50 ball. It's picked off. The black shirts with the dagger. Malcolm Hartzog with a giant pick sails the night for the Big Red. We're done. Huskers win. Golly, grandkids.
They got a storm on the floor. Love it. Sign your name, Fred Hoiberg. There's your signature win.
The Nebraska Cornhuskers have run the table and run it back. Back-to-back Big Ten tournament champions.
Here's Tom Stevens and Mike Melby on Lincoln's Husker Radio, 1499.3 KLIN.
Jay Sean back on the slab. Stares into Fikes. Comes set. The 0-2 pitch. Swing and a miss. He struck him out. And the Huskers have rallied from a 5-0 deficit. And Jay Sean Unger slams the door. And this series is even at a game apiece as the Cornhuskers knock off the Ducks. It's Nebraska 10, Oregon 8.
Unfortunately, that was last night. They fall today 5-4 to Oregon. Number 21, Oregon. Nebraska, number 19. So that was a big series RPI-wise for Nebraska, seeking to host its first regional, I believe, since 2005. That would be nice, but a tough one today as Nebraska falls to Oregon. Again, 5-4, the final. Some tough luck hitting at the end, and Nebraska baseball falls again to Oregon. They got Creighton this week, and then another series this weekend. So there's a lot to play for this team. This is a team that I could see winning maybe 40 games this year, maybe close to 50.
Maybe. Yeah.
I mean, they won, 22 of 23. So this is a team that can play great baseball. There's a toughness factor to them. The Big Ten is better. So there are games that will be played down the road that will really help Nebraska baseball. Are you on the air, Mike?
I am.
Okay.
I'm going to move your camera because right now it's on my briefcase.
Okay.
So
Move the camera.
I'm going to spin that thing around.
Mike Melby is our technical support guy. This is Tom and Mike, Husker Rewind every Sunday from 5 to 7. Coming up in just a few minutes, Brian Christopherson, we're going to talk a lot about the portal, actually. Nebraska basketball, trying to replace some tough guys to replace. Obviously, Jamarcus Lawrence, gone. Rink Mask, gone from this roster. Berke Buchtengel, maybe gone. Although, is he? He's in the portal. Will Nebraska get him back? That's a question that I'd like to ask Brian Christopherson coming up in just a few minutes. Some sad news. Former Husker football player Chris Jones has passed. Tony Davis earlier this week.
Yeah.
Who was 73. I got to know Tony a little bit in the early 2000s because his son Josh was playing for Bill Callahan. But this is more sad news for Husker football fans.
Yeah, he passed away in a car accident in Florida last night. Had just retired from the USFL earlier this year. But yeah, sad news. And the thing is, I know Michael Rose Ivy had a post, and several former Huskers posted about Chris Jones. And there's guys that are just as genuine as they come, and all they do is good for humanity.
Yeah.
That was Chris Jones. So a huge loss with him passing away, unfortunately, in a car accident last night.
Has Rory officially won the Masters yet?
Not yet. He's got a 2-shot lead, and he just teed off on 18. So
it looks like it's going to be a coronation for Rory. He had lost the lead. He had, on Saturday, going into Saturday, he was 11 under. The closest competitors were at 6 under. And then at the end of Saturday, he was tied with Cam Young. And it looked at one point like it looked bad for Rory. Cam Young had taken the lead. Justin Rose took the lead for a while. Then Rory got it back. I think that Masters last year, winning the Masters last year for Rory McIlroy, really freed him up.
I think it did too. And I think the reason why he's going to win this thing when everybody else was faltering is simply and even Scotty.
Scotty faltered a little bit, but he got a credit for at the start of yesterday. Scotty Scheffler was even par.
Yeah, he shot 65 yesterday.
I think he shot 65.
Yeah.
And then today he shot another good round. I don't know what it was.
68.
But 68. But he's probably going to finish second in this thing.
Yeah.
Scotty Scheffler.
Yeah, he's in the clubhouse at 11. He's got Rory's got 2 on him.
Yeah.
So, but barring John Vandevelde running out of the crowd naked or something, I don't know.
Remember, Craig Norman hit it into the grandstand with Nicklaus in the clubhouse with the lead.
Well, Seve on 15 back in 86.
Yeah.
Pulled his approach shot into the water.
And
on
we've
15.
seen Rory do stuff like that to the Masters.
Yeah.
I hope it doesn't happen. I don't want to. I'm not one of those guys. I'm not a big Rory fan, but he deserves to win this tournament. He's played the best golf this weekend and deserves to get his second green jacket. I don't think he has a green jacket, but he does like to play golf. Brian Christopherson of Husker Online, or Husker 24/7, excuse me. Going to talk a little Husker basketball, maybe some Husker football. Coming up in just a few minutes, Mike Melby, Tom Stevens, more on the way.
And welcome back. Oh, live radio sometimes is so much fun.
Well, we just came out of a baseball game, and sometimes you don't have the ability to put in all the segments.
Yeah,
that you
things
wanna
don't
put in.
sync right.
And,
Anyway.
Nebraska baseball, by the way, I still think it was a good weekend. They fall 7-6 on Friday night to a really good Oregon team. Bounce back, win 10-7 or 10-8 last night. And Sanderson, what a weekend he had. What they fall today, 5-4, some unlucky hitting, but I think all in all, a pretty good weekend for Nebraska baseball.
Yeah, I mean, you battled with one of the top 20 teams in the country. One thing, we've got Brian Christopherson on the Summit Lawns Talk and Text line. Brian, Tom alluded to the fact that he wasn't sure that you had a green jacket. I'm pretty sure you've got to have a green one somewhere.
A green jacket?
No green jacket.
Oh, okay, Tom was right. I even though I've never seen you play golf, I had faith in your ability. So I just want to put that out there. So.
By the way, Rory is lining up to get his second green jacket, and he hits into 18. I think that's on the green. Is that on the? Are you watching right now? I know you, BC, you're a big golf fan.
I have it on. He did kind of a Rory thing where it was like all locked up, and then he's like, I want to kind of keep you on the seat, and he hit it into the pine. But it looks like he's sort of back out after his second shot and in pretty good shape.
This was a weird Masters. I mean, he had the big lead. It looked like he was going to do something like Tiger did in the late 90s and just win by 10 shots or something. And then, he has the huge lead going to the weekend and then loses it all on Saturday, and then gains it back and then loses it. And then he kind of did what he did last year when he won the green jacket. He gave it away and then he won it.
Yeah, it was a crazy tournament.
Yeah.
It usually is, though. I mean, that back nine it's the perfect nine in golf. It's not overhyped. I mean, it's like a foot or two difference between a brilliant shot and being in the water. So,
have you ever been there?
I haven't. I'm thinking about doing what Bruntz always does, my coworker, and doing this where you try to get in the lottery, but he's done it for 20 years and never won. So I guess it's long odds just to get there for one day even.
Well, we didn't bring you on to talk golf, although we could with BC. He loves to play golf. Talked really about Husker basketball is really what we want to talk about. Nebraska gets a transfer with Sam Orm. I think that's how it's pronounced, 6'9", from Belmont. And they thought maybe they would get good news as well on another transfer from Boise State. That didn't happen. But early stages of the transfer portal, how's it going in your mind?
I mean, Orm was a great pickup, to me for what this roster already has in place with Sanford and Frager. He's a versatile four-man. There's always going to be that question about that we can't answer till we see him like in Nate Lenzer's system, like how a guy fits in with your defense. But I have such an amount of confidence in Coach Lenzer and what he's able to get out of guys that that doesn't worry me as much. I think he'll figure out how to, whatever combination of guys he has, he'll make them excel and cover up their flaws pretty well. But Sam Orm out of Belmont, you look at him, he's got a sweet stroke, another, as Fred would call him, laser from the outside that's going to stretch a defense and stress a defense. And it should open up a lot of lanes for cuts and stuff like that, and Frager to get to the hole. And if you watch Orm's highlights, he's pretty nimble on his feet too. I think he's a guy who can put the ball on the deck and make some stuff happen. So it makes a lot of sense. We'll see what happens with Drew Fielder out of Boise State, who wrapped up a visit Saturday, then went to Washington. That's one that if you were able to get him along with Sam, that would be a pretty nice 1-2 combo.
One that they did not get, I believe it was Trayvon Anderson that ultimately was a Pius grad and wound up going to Butler. Did that surprise you that Nebraska didn't land him?
Not necessarily. I didn't know where that would go. I knew that he had a conversation with Nebraska. A lot of people have had, the Zoom talks with the coaches, but he was a guy who had, 3 or 4 options on the table. And it's hard to know, Mike, these are really tough because you don't know what the offers are for different guys. And one guy might be like 3rd or 4th in the pecking order for one school, and he's 1 or 2 in the pecking order for another school. Right. And so it's hard to kind of weigh that together and do that balancing act. But I did have a hope that it would kind of work out this year because he is a Lincoln kid, and we've obviously seen with Josiah Alec and Sam Grissel how that's worked really well for Nebraska out of the portal. I don't wish guys to just transfer all the time, but who knows? He has 2 years left, so there's always next year, right? I mean, that's sort of the way the system works now.
Well, the one thing I want to ask you about is Burke. It was kind of reported that he was asking for essentially double what he made last year. And so it wasn't a surprise when he jumped in the portal. It was not something Nebraska was willing to do with the budget that they have, which has been reported to be roughly $8.5 million this year. But what we're hearing is that Burke's phone is not necessarily ringing off the hook. Do you think it's possible Burke winds up back at Nebraska next year?
I would never say never to anything in the portal. I mean, that's basically where we're at. A few days ago, I would have said definitely not, but you never know. It depends how the roster works together, who says yes and who says no. And if he were still available at that point, and the asking price went down, who knows? But I wouldn't like bet on it at this moment. But that's the crazy world we live in. You sort of are hesitant to say anything for certain one way or another because nothing really surprises you. I know this though. He loved playing for this school and that team last year. It meant a lot to him. And money is always has the loudest megaphone in these things. But I am sometimes persuaded by the locker room interviews, like during March Madness. And I remember being at his locker room stall after they lost to Iowa in the Sweet 16. And, he's like, we're not losing to those guys again. And it was, he's all about next year and stuff like that. And you can kind of leave the locker room like, oh, that guy's coming back. And then you realize like a week later, yeah, maybe it's still going to come down to dollar figures when it's all said and done. But it's an interesting question. And I guess you just pick the next 48 hours, I think, are going to tell you a lot. What does Drew Fielder do? The point guard, the 6'5" guard, I think is going to be in town. I'm blanking on his name right now. I'll get it for you in a second. You guys know Lenhart. I think he's going to be in town tomorrow. Trevon Lenhart from Utah Valley. And, if him and Fielder say yes and join Orm, maybe they're sort of good to go with just like looking for sort of your fourth and fifth type guys, role player guys after that. I don't know.
Brian Christopherson, Husker 24/7, our guest. It's interesting because you think Nebraska did really well out of the portal last year. They got to the Sweet 16, but their best guys out of the portal were guys that were already on the team. I mean,
Price.
Yeah. Rick Mask was here and then came back from an injury. Jamarcus Lawrence was here, left, and then came back. But they kind of struck out in certain areas. I mean, Jared Garcia didn't play a lot of minutes, and Kendall Blue didn't play a ton of minutes. Oogie was injured. And Fred said something interesting. I think retention might be the most important thing. They did lose Burke. Maybe they get him back, but retention, we didn't count on Frager being the player that he was. And, maybe it's just bringing the guys back and then adding some additional pieces.
Absolutely. I mean, you already have two guys that you're ecstatic to have back. We assume Price is going to be back, I think, at this point. They haven't officially said he's signed, but obviously they have with Frager. Frager's best basketball is ahead of him. And I think in March Madness, like in the tournament, he was playing downhill and was sort of that fearless Frager again, like that bucket, obviously with 2.2 seconds left against Vandy, that's going to be replayed forever around here. I mean, that gives you a lot of confidence. You walk pretty tall after that. But you go back, watch that game again, which I have like 2 or 3 times because it was such a great game.
Same.
And he just had some tough takes, like in the first half, that you can't forget about. And that was a kid playing with some juice to him. And so I think we're going to see even a better version of him going forward. And then Price is, he's one of the best shooters in the country. And so, yes, they're in a much better spot. Just, the template of what they already had set going into this portal cycle than they were a season ago where we didn't know about certain guys. So, yeah, getting Price and Frager back, that's the biggest deal. Kale's going to be an important part of this. So they've got guys that are going to matter that have been on this team, and they're going to set the tone for these new guys. Like, this is the expectation here.
Well, and that's what I was going to ask you. We've just got about a minute and a half here before the top of the hour break that we're going to be up against. But I want to ask you about Jacob Lanier, Colin Rice, both of them spectacular high school careers. I kind of feel like both of them are going to find their way into the rotation next year. What do you think?
I think it's possible at least one of them does. It's always like it. I'm hesitant to say like both because it is hard when you get down to it to sometimes crack the top 7 or 8 on a college team just out of high school. But I think both of them have the possibilities to do it. And I think Colin Rice in particular, I know a little bit more about him than Lanier, I feel like. But Colin Rice was an excellent pickup. And to me, there's a little bit of like a Price clone there. Like you got like Price Jr., and I'm not just saying that because he's from Iowa and same neighborhood sort of thing. His game, I think, can be very similar to that. It's going to take time to grow, but it would not surprise me if at least one of those guys matters a lot next year.
Look at us go. We had you on for 15 minutes and didn't even mention Husker football. It's crazy.
That's sort of the way it is right now. But we'll get to it. We're about to work our way back to across that bridge, and for better or worse, see how that goes.
Thanks, BC. We'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, BC.
Thanks, guys.
There you go. Hour number 2 is on the way. Mike Melby, Tom Stevens. It's Husker Rewind. More coming up. In just a few minutes. I believe we do still have, well, we don't have a top of the hour break. I'm all a flutter because of Husker baseball. And I'm a little disappointed they lost. I'm disappointed that Rory won. I don't dislike Rory, but I just didn't want him to win. And did he officially win?
Yeah, he officially won.
He
a couple
didn't
of minutes
five-putt
ago.
or anything on the final
He tried.
green. We do need to get to Andy Markowski, so talk for a couple seconds, and I'll call Andy Markowski.
Yeah, so to get you caught up on what has happened in Nebraska athletics today, Nebraska baseball winds up falling out in Oregon today by a score of 5-4. They won 10-8 last night in dramatic fashion, almost came back on Friday night, but they lose 7-6. This was a matchup of number 19 Nebraska and number 21 Oregon. Realistically, both these teams, I think, are locks to get into the NCAA tournament. Does one of them host a regional? I don't know. That pivotal game today, that swing game today, could decide if maybe one of these teams hosts a regional. And right now that gate swung towards Oregon. Huskers sit 27-9 overall, 12-3 in the conference. And as we look ahead to next week, big game coming up with Creighton on Tuesday. That is at Hawks Field. And then a home series against the USC Trojans this coming Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And then next Tuesday, they are at Kansas. So things not going to get a whole lot easier for Husker baseball. Softball rolled today. They won. They run-rolled them. I think it was 12-2. Let me get the score pulled up here. Yeah, 12-2 today over Wisconsin up in Madison. They sweep the series 5-0 on Friday, 6-0 yesterday, and 1 out away from a no-hitter for Jody Fromm, but they break it up in the bottom of the 7th yesterday. Nebraska still won 6 rips. She got a complete game shutout.
They're a team that could win the World Series this year?
Why not? You've got Jody today wound up with a grand slam, and Ava Hutchinson had a 2-run bomb.
And they've got
team's
some depth
loaded,
to pitching
man.
now.
Yeah,
Jensen as your number 2 pitcher.
Yeah,
I mean, she would be a number 1 on most teams. I mean, that's a team that I think could make a huge run. I mean, they've been to the College World Series before and made runs, but this team might be more loaded than any team that I ever remember. Yeah,
and then real quick, Nebraska volleyball over the weekend wound up playing. I don't even remember where they played. I think they were up at the Sanford Pentagon, up in Sioux Falls, Bergen Riley's hometown. Yes. They sweep a 4-setter. The exhibition matches go 4 sets. And they win 25-17, 25-16, 25-16, and 26-24 over Iowa State yesterday. But Nebraska volleyball looks scarier than they have the last several years. So we'll see if they can get the monkey off the back and win a natty.
There you go. Good update there from Mike Melby. Husker Rewind, Tom Stevens, Mike Melby every Sunday, 5 to 7. We had him on for most of the year talking about Husker basketball postgame, analyzing the game. And now we're into the offseason and analyzing the portal, Nebraska's needs. Andy Markowski, we welcome him in, former captain in the Danny Nee era. How are you?
I'm doing great. Just got off of an exciting Sunday of couch work watching the Masters. So always a good day in the sports calendar.
Are you a golf guy?
I am. I had some. My son had some hoops in Omaha, so I missed a little bit of it, but I always try to follow it and try to play to the best of my abilities, which is not very good, but it's still fun to try.
Rory picks up his second green jacket in as many years. Scotty way down the board. That was one of the bigger stories because Rory had the big lead. They kind of gave away the big lead, and then you see Scotty go from even par to 11 under. Not quite enough. Missed a few putts down the stretch, but that was a fun tournament. Always is a fun tournament to watch.
Yeah, I thought there had a chance to be a lot of great storylines today, and it just didn't really. It was kind of anticlimactic. Rory was kind of out of it and then took control of it. Nobody really put the pressure on him, but yeah, certainly a lot of big names on the board on a Sunday, which is always entertaining to follow.
Well, we don't normally talk a lot of basketball after the season's over. We don't really talk much Husker basketball this time of year anyway, because they're not usually, a Sweet 16 team and the 14th ranked team postseason in the country, or even preseason or anytime during the season. Yeah. But this team is, and now they've hit the portal. They added Sam Orm from Belmont, 6'9". What do you think?
I think it's a great fit. I think Orm was going to be one of the top portal guys, kind of at his position, right? Kind of a stretch four, shot it well from the three, has played for a winning program, has had a pattern of success. So I think when the portal plays itself out, I mean, he'll be a top 100, type portal addition. So, I think it's important. We needed to reinforce our front line with some of the changes. So, I thought it was a great get, and the fact that they were able to do it so efficiently, allows them to kind of move on, and you still have your budget in front of you, and you're trying to make it all work.
Speaking of that budget, Drew Fielder is a guy that they are saying could demand $2 million. Nebraska's reported budget's about $8.5 million. That's an awful lot of money to throw out for one guy when they're already paying Braden, and Price is going to be pricey. What do you think about Fielder? He's going to Washington. I think he's there today. Do you think Nebraska does still have a shot with him, even though he's going to be pretty expensive?
Yeah, I know. One of the assistants does have a prior relationship there, so you really hope that that doesn't come down to just money, right? I mean, some of these players are trying to project what impact you can have. How does that project to your development? Does that project to having a big year and some development where you're able to go play professional basketball, maybe at a higher level? So it's just not, maybe income for 1 year. It's, how do you expand upon that and maybe maximize your money down the road with a good year of fit, a good year of development. So you hope all those things are in play, but certainly the budget we have and what we're paying some of our better returning players, it's hard. And, these are hard conversations to have is, somebody that maybe hasn't done anything at your level or in your program, potentially making more than what you're making, like a Frager or Sanford, right? I mean, he should be the highest paid guy in the locker room, and it may not be the case. So those are, again, coaches have a really hard job, not just X's and O's and developing a team, but trying to fit, all of this together when it may not make sense in hindsight of how much one guy's making versus the next guy. And, I think that happened with Bear K a little bit. I think they wanted to retain Bear K, but it got to the point where, too much money was being asked of our budget and the productivity. You just got to kind of move on and start over and build it with what you have control of.
We brought that question up in the first hour about Berke. Maybe he wanted more money, but he's still in the portal, at least for now. Possible that he could look around and say, you know what? I want to come back. It kind of happened with Jamarcus Lawrence.
Yeah, there's certainly leverage. Lawrence is a little different where he left and then came back.
Right.
It really wasn't a leverage play. Bear Case is a leverage play, right? I mean, he was paid X. They were willing to go Y. His agent, thought there was a bigger market out there for him. So there may or may not be. I hope your agent has a good understanding of what your market value is, right? But yeah, I think Bear K is respected. I think we would take him back, at the number that they think is right and fair. So stay tuned, right? I mean, these things can take a turn, but I think both sides left thinking it was time to move on. But again, that could change. But again, Nebraska's got to get a couple more, bigs, and I know they're really trying to find a point or somebody that could be a lead guard, which is going to be a position in demand as well financially in the portal right now.
Andy Markowski, former captain in the Danny Nee era, late 90s. You brought up a good point, and I want to address it because I think we think it's all about the money and what can Washington pay versus what Nebraska can pay. But you mentioned some of these guys want to play in the league, and they look at systems and what can get me to the league. And the fact that Nebraska was successful with maybe not as much talent as some other teams had. Washington had a lot of talent last year. They don't play in front of a packed arena all the time. Nebraska was a Sweet 16 team. They do pack their arena all the time, and they have a coach who knows how to put guys in the league. How much does that factor in?
Well, I think if you're recruiting the right kid to have the right impact, all those variables should factor in. Money is a factor. It shouldn't be the factor. I think some of these schools that are turning over a lot of their players, don't have a culture or don't have a plan, or even Orem, he kind of recruited us too. I mean, if you listen to some, I don't know exactly how that played out, but of his list, he had watched schools and really targeted a few schools that he thought fit him. So out of the gate, you have a lot of interest, but you have a player that saw a lot of things that you do as a program and how you play and the success you've had, that allowed Nebraska to be on the short list for him and then move fast. So, I do think you have to, just because you spend it, I look at their Indiana last year, right? I mean, they threw a lot of money at a lot of players and missed. And same with Oregon. Dana is on record of saying
Creighton.
They did not do a good job, even though they had a lot of money and enough money to be successful. So, I do think you need to have kids that you feel fit, want to be there for the right reasons, want to represent Nebraska, play in an unselfish, fun system, and then you hope the money is right. And I do think they've increased their pool of money. It's not going to be in the top third of the Big Ten or top 20 of the country, but certainly there's enough money there for Fred and staff to be competitive.
Former Nebraska basketball captain Andy Markowski joining us on the Summit Lawns Talk and Text line. I want to ask you about the guys that were making the assumption will be back if they have not announced from last year's team. Connor Esijan is one. Another one, obviously, Braden Frager. You have got possibly Ugi, Yarusevichus. Price is going to be back. Kale back. Leo Curtis back as well. Henry Burt, more than likely not going to be a guy that's going to be in the rotation. But of Leo, of Kale, I'm going to throw out Ugi if he's healthy, and Connor. Those four are all, to me, a bit of an enigma on what you're going to get from them. Is it going to be what they delivered in the past for Nebraska, or which one of those four do you feel is going to be the guy that everybody goes, wow, that extra year really helped him? Who's going to be the one that makes the biggest surprise to the Nebraska fan base next year out of those four players, do you think?
Well, if Ugi is healthy, they were really thinking he could have a big impact on this year's team. I mean, the talent's there, the production level was there at the MAC level, mid-major level last year at Central Michigan. He does have an injury that, he may not be, may not be back to what he was or may even play, right? I think that will play itself out. Esijan is still, I think, was off to not a great start shooting the ball. I think Connor will get back and having his type of year. I do like Leo. There was times when Leo was able to get on the court, and he didn't look like he didn't belong. He certainly needs to get stronger, and but he's all of 7'1". He moves well. He's got good hands. I think he can. Bearcate's size, I thought, popped at times in games at 6'11". I think Leo's size will pop in the Big Ten. Versus even Rink at 6'9", or even Orem, only at 6'8". Like that's not Sweet 16, Elite 8 size, right? You saw size really went out in the end. I do think Leo has a chance to be a great player. I mean, he played on Iceland's, U19 team and had a great summer international basketball last year against, his peers his age. So, I think that could be a really good surprise. And if Ugi's healthy, I think they'll like the productivity from him. But, with that being said, they need to go out and probably sign 3. They've got one front line. They probably need 2 more just to make sure you've got 5. I think you have to have 5 on your front court to make sure you've got enough to play yourself through a competitive Big Ten 20-game schedule with injuries. And one of them, probably not going to, develop or be as productive as maybe what you anticipated.
Do you think Nebraska, it feels like a long time in the Hoiberg era, you would ask somebody, what's your identity? And we didn't really have a good answer for it. Now we can see it. The last, not just this year, but the last couple of years, you can see Nebraska's identity. They share the ball. They can make threes more than ever. But one thing that helped the identity was Sam Hoiberg, and he has such a unique skill set that can you recruit that type of guy? I mean, is there a way to recruit a guy with that skill set? Because it's so unique.
No, again, just the coach's kid, the intangibles, the intelligence, the IQ, obviously being able to play a little bigger than his size. I mean, certainly you want to recruit hardworking kids that understand the game. I think those are attributes that you look for, but certainly Sam came from a unique background, right? Having a dad in the NBA and a high major coach. I mean, he was privileged through a lot of years of being around basketball. So, I think that helped his, allowed him to play faster, right? Just his understanding of every little detail of the game. And, to be honest, Hoiberg and Jacobson, really protected Nebraska in the sense of they weren't scholarship kids. And we missed on the portal. You missed on Blue. You probably missed on Garcia a year ago. And, talking to the staff, they'll tell you that playing in the Crown tournament, the week that the portal opened, they didn't feel like they had a great, just the due diligence on a few kids. And again, Garcia and Blue both were great kids. And, but for the money that they invested in those two, they probably didn't get the productivity out of them. But you got it in Hoiberg and Jacobson, which were not scholarship kids. So, that really insulated them and protected them from a couple portal misses. They don't have that this year. They have Kale, which I think we'll plan on being in the rotation. But, I really feel like the development of those two and Sam's junior to senior year bounce, which, from an offensive standpoint, I think he averaged, 6 more points a game, this year versus last year, were probably the difference of just getting to the tournament versus getting to the Sweet 16. So, again, great season, and you hope to find more of him because he was easy to root for and fun to watch his development over his 5 years as a Husker.
Andy, before we let you go, I want to ask you about the way the season ended. We were talking after Nebraska had knocked off Vanderbilt about how if Iowa somehow upsets Florida and we lose to Iowa, there was a couple of us, kind of our producer that comes in and helps us get StreamYard set up, Kenny.
It wasn't me.
And myself. That we both were like, if we lose to Iowa, the whole season's a complete throwaway loss. I quit. It's going to be the worst season ever. I felt that way for about a week. And then it has subsided. I now respect what the team did and all that, but it stings. How was it for you, the fact that we wind up losing to basically our arch rival when we had an opportunity to make even more history going to the Elite Eight?
Yeah, I was kind of the same. I kept thinking, wow, what if, right? What if we lose to them? And it did hurt. And I listened to, a few people that, have, fans of Iowa for a couple of days. But, as you package the whole year, that wore off pretty quick because, what this group did was special. I think even Iowa fans understood, it was a great game. Iowa goes in, almost has a chance to win Elite Eight. So that speaks to them being, just a really, really good team. And, but yeah, I'm super proud that kind of washed off, even though, it was a rival, but I'm sure as we kick off the hoop season next year, that will be reminded to us into our season, right? They're not going to lose a chance at that. But yeah, same deal. I the fact that we can celebrate a Sweet 16 and hang a banner and get the, never won an NCAA tournament, off of our, off our backs, is fun. And, we're still talking hoops into April, which has never really happened in this state, right? As you said in your opening.
Isn't it awesome?
Yeah. We loved having you on all season long. And maybe when they sign the top portal class, we'll have you back in a couple weeks.
Well, that would be a great problem to have, and I'd love to discuss it.
Yeah.
Go Huskers.
We've loved having you. Thank you so much, Andy.
Thanks, Andy.
All right, guys. Take care.
There you go. Andy Markowski, former team captain, a couple times in the Danny Nee era. And he was there when Danny Nee was back. That was fun. I was just basically a fly on the wall listening to him and Danny Nee and and others. Eric Strickland was there talking Husker hoops, and Danny Nee is so proud of this team. He's really, really happy for where Nebraska basketball is, and I'm happy that he's happy.
Same.
Yeah,
well, I mean, he took it to where it could get to.
Yeah.
And
I didn't know that we'd ever get back to where Danny Nee had it.
Yeah,
You can now say they're beyond where Danny Nee, because they won a tournament game, not just one, but two, and probably should have been, as you mentioned, in the Elite Eight. Let's get to break. We'll be back with more after this. Tom Stevens, Mike Melby, Husker Rewind.
Mike Melby and Tom Stevens.
They've done studies, 60% of the time, it works every time.
Husker Rewind on Lincoln's Husker Radio, 1499.3 KLIN.
Chamblin is the end, split on the left side. Davis is the top of the eye, and Powell's the fullback. Quarterback has a slot back left, and to give us to Davis, and Davis hits, drives in, touchdown. Now, I'm going to tell you something right here, and wait till you see it. Number 20, Terry Brown, who is a tough cornerback, met Tony Davis head-on at the 2-yard line. Davis knocked his helmet right off of his head, off of Brown's head, and picked him, and went right on in for the touchdown.
There you go.
What
Tony
an
Davis.
awesome.
My dad used to say this about Tony Davis. He would run 10 yards out of his way to hit somebody. He was more, he played the game at running back more like a linebacker. And I got to know him a little bit when he moved to Lincoln for a while. He was living in Colorado, and his son Josh was playing for Bill Callahan. And so I got to know him. We worked out at the same facility. And it's a good time to bring in Stephen M. Sipple of Husker Online. I know he knows and knew Tony Davis. What are your memories of Tony?
Oh, I mean, earliest memories were, hi, guys.
Hi.
Hi, Steve.
Are both of you on there today?
Yeah.
We're both on. Oh.
Whoa, okay. I mean, I was a kid, I don't know, I'm 59. So he was playing in the early to mid 70s. So I was I was age 8, 7, 9 in that range. So I was really impressionable. And Tony was my favorite player. As my earliest memories of the Huskers, Tony was my favorite player. And then at one time I told him, I'm kind of glad I told him this, I don't know, 10 years ago. It was kind of awkward. But I said, this is unique because you were an idol. And now I have you as a friend. And it was sort of remarkable to me. I loved him. He helped me a lot. Tony helped me with football. I didn't play it like, I don't know, you guys probably played it. I didn't play it. And, I didn't really get into the business to cover it. So it was all a little shaky to me a lot of my tenure. But Tony was one of the guys, there's about 5 or 6 of them that really helped me a lot. And he was very patient. Like, Tony's a really good dude. Like, he was a really, he comes off as gruff. He has that sort of rough exterior. I always felt it was misleading. I mean, he was a kind soul, and that kindness manifested itself in him never losing patience with my dumb questions. He'd answer them, and he wouldn't mock me, and that's not, how that goes. Not all guys are like that.
No, very true. And I don't want to keep it on a down note, but I would feel remiss if I did not mention, so we can share some positive memories about Chris Peyton Jones. Unfortunately, passed away in a car wreck in Florida last night. What do you remember about Chris when he was playing? He was there for the Mike Riley era, and I believe the first year was he there for the first year of Frost or not?
He was there for the first year of Bo, I believe, 2014. He was there for 2014 for Bo, and then I think
through 17. Yeah,
through 7. Okay, so that was back when we could talk to players, and he was a genuinely kind player. He was I liked him. He was a long corner. And, if anybody listens to anything I ever say, I want bigger, longer players all over the field. And he was that prototypical long corner, long levers, tall, great player. I mean, he's a very good player at Nebraska in our time that was sort of, it's a forgotten time largely, but there's a few players in those years that I don't forget, and he was one of them. Chris Jones was a really good player. I remember watching him a lot in warm. It's strange. He was always one of the guys out on the field first at Memorial Stadium. And we were always up there exceedingly early because of the sort of rabid nature of the media corps here. And I remember early, long before games, he'd be out there, and I'd always sort of marvel. Look at that corner. Look at that big, tall, like racehorse out there. And it's sad.
Yeah.
Way too early, 30 years old.
Steve Sipple, Husker Online, our guest. It's not been an off season that I can remember a lot of. I mean, I think of off season, there's always hype. This year, and maybe justifiably so, there's not much at all. Is that in some ways refreshing to you?
A good question. Nobody's posed it to me that way. That's why I hesitate. I don't think I find it refreshing.
Well, it feels like that sometimes we're in the off season, and this is going to be good. This is going to be, and it's more of a wait and see attitude from Husker fans. Yeah, you're excited about maybe Jamal Rule or Anthony Calandria or potential for the offensive line, but it's the fan base to me saying, no, I want to see it with my own eyes, and then I'll believe it.
I think that's a prevailing sentiment. I'm always careful, Tom, about throwing a blanket over everybody because, there's That not everybody thinks the same way, but I think by and large that's a sentiment that's pervasive. Refreshing, I don't know. No, I don't know if I'd say refreshing. I'd almost say more disconcerting. I kind of like not overdone hyperbole, but I like optimism. I like. I think it's better I think it's better for the program when there's more optimism. I don't think it doesn't feel great for the program, in my opinion. So I don't know that I find it refreshing. I just find it.
It does feel like Matt Rule has definitely eased back on the hype this year. Like you don't see a lot of podcasts. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I've just missed them. And when he's talking to you and the media, it seems like he's a little more restrained right now.
Oh yeah, he is. I mean, it was market the difference, and all we're really talking about now is his podium appearances before the local media. He's done, I don't know, he maybe done a few interviews, but to your point, not nearly as many. And the ones he has done, he's pulled way back on that. He's much more measured, much more. He lands the helicopters, as Sean likes to say, Callahan. He lands the helicopter quick. He doesn't meander. He doesn't make bold proclamations. He will praise a player. He praised Rule effusively. Jamal after the spring game. He praised Whittington pretty effusively after the spring game, but generally speaking, more reserved. So yeah, which I don't know. Like I said, I don't know if that's good or bad. It's just what it is.
Hey, Sip, I want to ask you about prognostications for next year, record-wise. I think the over-under is either 5.5 or 6.5, and a lot of people are predicting 6-6. Do you think they get to 6 next year?
Yeah, I think they have Mike. I think they have a good chance. I wouldn't push it. See, I'm sort of in that mindset that a lot of people are. I wouldn't push it much past 6 right now. You might get me to 7. Like if they go 5-0, to get me to 7. But I regard that as an if, maybe more than some people do. I'm always sort of amazed when I hear people say, "Well, they'll get to 5-0." Means we got to win at Michigan State. Maryland, took they barely got Maryland last year. Took a great throw from Dillon, and then sort of lucky on defense that Maryland didn't complete that last ball. So I don't know. If they get to 5-0, then I think we're talking about 7 and maybe 8. But if they don't, then I don't know where it's going.
If they do get to 5-0 and then 7 or 8, maybe 9, who knows? What is going to be the reason for that? Some say Anthony Calandria. You got a mobile quarterback who can throw on the run. Maybe you have a little more depth along the offensive line than you've ever had. What's your reason? If we were to share some hype, what's the reason for that hype?
Well, I can answer without going into hype. I think the reason will be the defensive line's better than we thought. And that, the one thing that gets overlooked a little bit in that discussion is in Rob Arich's 4-2-5 system, they're going to ask those guys up front, all of them across the line, to make plays, not just hold the point. In the 3-3-5, they weren't really asking linemen to make plays. They're hold the point, so the guys behind them, the linebackers, safeties, to make plays. This is a big adjustment for those guys. Those guys, Van Poppel, Whittington, Stoudemire, who played in it. Stoudemire played in the 3-3-5. Whittington, fortunately, at Pitt, played in the 4-2-5. Not as big adjustment for him, but all those guys, Stuart Lefito, Gabe Moore, all these guys returning, it's a big change. And we'll see how they adjust. They got to make plays. They got to get upfield and make plays. They're not just holding the point anymore. So I think if Nebraska is going to win 8 or 9, it'll be because, in my mind, the defensive line this is just my opinion, is much better than I think.
Fair enough. I like the sentiment there. I hope you're right. I'm kind of more on the skeptical side. I think 5-7's their ceiling, but that's me, and I don't know anything. So I want to switch gears real quick with you, Sip, and go to basketball. You had the ability to go to OKC, experience everything firsthand. Same thing in Houston. Then I don't even want to talk about the whole pink eye thing. I feel horrible for you though. But after reliving or living through all of that stuff and having now a few weeks to kind of let it settle in, have you found yourself going back? And I'm just a fan. I sat at home and watched it. I've the last couple of weeks been going, was that a dream?
Right.
Like it felt like it at the time. And I go back and I have to rewatch the Vandy game because I'm like, okay, nope.
No, it happened.
It's on my DVR. I did not dream it. How has it been for you here this last couple of weeks? It's just kind of remembering that fantastic run at the end.
That's a wonderful way to put it. It is. It did at times to me, especially in Oklahoma City, seem surreal. I mean, there's a few moments that were profound, that will live in my mind forever. You don't say that too much, right? There's a lot of games I don't even remember being at. There's a lot. It's scary. There's a lot I literally don't remember being there. It's 30 years, but and it's a lot of issues. But I against Troy, that booming roar in the pregame, right as they were being introduced, and then listen, I got to be careful. Sean gets on me for this. I was looking at the Troy cheerleaders' faces. I wasn't looking at the cheerleaders in any kind of weird way. There's male and female, but I just their faces were like, what is going on here? And the players were a little like that too. And then you look down at the Troy players and see, boy, they're not very big. And this doesn't look right. This doesn't look good for Troy. Nothing about it looked good. And of course, the game was over in the midway through the first half, right? And then the Vandy game was a similar way, Mike. It was, all I could think during the entire game was every possession felt big. Every one. I mean, it was the intensity is what I always take from a game like that is how mentally strong these guys have to be. And, they train all year for that type of thing. And you can tell they train all year. They would have to. Because the only way to survive a game like that is if you train all year, train physically and mentally. And they do. And then you saw the fruits of their labor. It was amazing, that Vandy game. Just the sheer intensity of a Sweet 16, or what's that, Sweet 16, whatever the hell it was.
Round of 32.
Round of 32 games. Loser goes home scenario, March Madness, and all that encompasses in this country. You felt all of that in that arena.
Yeah, and I know what you guys mean. It felt like a little bit of a dream because you had people talking Nebraska basketball and saying, oh, yeah, I think they could make the Sweet 16. And you kind of laugh knowing that they had never won an NCAA tournament game. And then when it actually happened, you're thinking, I can't believe how good that game was. Part of that, it was easily one of the top 5 games in the whole entire tournament. Then you have people like Charles Barkley say, yeah, they're my team. That's the team I'm rooting for. It just didn't seem real, but it was.
Or Jay Bill is saying he was transfixed by the Nebraska Vandy game. That's high praise. Bill sees it all. I mean, he sees the biggest games there is. He's been in the biggest games at the college level. For him to say he was transfixed by that game, well, I get it because I was too. I mean, I get it, but I'm not Jay Billis.
Is it possible Nebraska could be? I mean, because you saw it at Indiana, they became a football school and then they won a national title, and they haven't been a basketball school for a long time. Nebraska, it's been a while since they've been relevant in football. Could it flip-flop potentially? Let Nebraska as a basketball school now?
I don't see it. I don't. I get it. I get the sentiment and I understand the question, but I just don't know. It'd be hard here for that to happen. Because of all of the things you guys understand, and I don't have to explain it. The magnitude of that football program is part of our very fabric. And something like that just doesn't go away. I mean, it's like I still consider Nebraska blue blood in football. Blue blood status. I mean, you achieve it over a long period of time, and it just doesn't. And if it's going to go away, it's going to take a much longer period of time.
Sip, can I change the question slightly? Can I say, can you see a scenario where Fred Hoiberg and Nebraska basketball is relevant into April, year after year, on a consistent 4 out of 5 year basis moving forward for, say, the next decade?
I'd like to think so. I mean, I do with some hesitancy because the previous season they didn't make the Big Ten tournament. I don't know if I want to go all in on that sentiment, but I'm not going in all in on that sentiment out of respect for some of the principals, right? Sam Hoiberg and Rink and Jamarcus Lawrence. Those are hard to replace. Those guys are good, but they were good, baby. I mean, they were not only good, they were solid dudes and excellent teammates, and the chemistry was right. So I'm not going to go all in on that, not in a negative way, but almost out of respect to those guys. Sam, I mean, I watched that. I mean, it's going to be hard to replace all he did. So I want to think so. I like what they got coming back, obviously. Now we don't know though. I mean, guys, I get 4 or 5 more guys here. I mean,
yeah.
And Mike, that's why I'm not going all in. I want to see what they come up with, right?
Sure.
Like that kid that was here from Boise State went to Washington. I watched his film. I thought that'd be a great guy to get. Now I don't know how they're going to get him. So I want to see what it looks like at the end of this portal period.
Yep. I would agree. One quick baseball question. They went into the weekend ranked 19th in the country. We'll see what they're ranked this week, but they're still 27-9, 12-3 in the league. They lose a couple of tough ones. Friday night 7-6, and then today 6-5. They win the middle game 10-8. But this feels like maybe the best team since 2005. Could this team host a regional in your mind?
Yeah, I mean, I thought they'd beat Oregon 2-3 and then follow it with USC 2-3. They're really in business. Now they'll have work to do here. But I saw Baseball America had them as a 17 national seed last week. Okay, that's the top 16 hosts, so they're right. They're right in that conversation. But they'll need to take care of business. I like the team. I don't know. I can't compare them across years, but what I like is that they're a consistent hitting team. I mean, you look at how much they were 8th in the country number of hits going into the weekend. Double check that, but I think that's right. And they're a good fielding team, which I appreciate, which I always appreciate. And that's what I figured. I figured Will's teams would be tough-minded at the plate. They get hit by pitches a lot. That's sort of like Will's persona. I think they were hit by 77 pitches and the opponent 45. They get hit by a ton of pitches. They'll do what they have to do to get on base. They defend, and the thing that they'll have to overcome a little bit is the relief pitching's been spotty.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it's good. They're good. But it's fun because they do have work to do. It's not, in order for them to host a regional, they'll really have to, they have to stay consistent down the stretch and win.
I want to jump across the sidewalk at Haymarket Park and ask you a question Tom asked me and asked BC earlier.
Yeah.
Can Nebraska softball win a national title this year?
Oh God, you would think so, right?
Yep.
I mean, based on what we saw last year, now it looks, and I don't follow it all that closely, but enough to know that they've added Alexa Jensen, the pitching staff's better. The thing I always wondered is would they get, to a point where they don't have to lean on a pitcher or two, and it looks like they've gotten to that point. And they're solid. They're solid. They're better than solid in a lot of other areas. And I love Rhonda. I guess I kind of lost touch with her, but hell, I was covering Rhonda when in the late 80s, I think, or early 90s. So I always appreciate coaches like that withstand the test of time, because it tells you they're able to adjust to the times. And look what she's done,
And Mike Melby, the former voice of Husker softball,
did it for a while
back in the day.
Hey, Sip, is Bullet okay in the background? I heard him yelling there. So
No, I'm at Planet Fitness. I don't know what that was.
Well, it sounded like a dog.
Yeah, I don't know what that was, but no, Bullet was he's great. He's 11 years old, but he seems like he's about 6.
Nice.
How old is that in human years? 11 years old.
77.
I don't know.
77.
Oh my God! Yeah, he doesn't seem he's fried.
Oh. Well, you don't seem 59. You said you look fantastic.
59.
And he's working out. I bet he's running circles around those kids at the gym right now.
Yep.
Yeah.
No, I'm not.
Good to have you on. We always love having you on. Stephen M. Sipple of Husker Online. We'll have you back soon.
Take care, Sip. Talk soon, man.
There you go. Steve Sipple, Husker Online. Let's get the break. One final segment. Mike Melby, Tom Stevens, Husker Rewind. More after this. Do you get some nice pieces? To me, though, it's what Andy Markowski said earlier. Oogie to me is the guy, and maybe you get Fielder as well, and Oregon or Washington doesn't give him the money that he wants, or maybe they do, and he just decides Fred Hoiberg's my coach, he's my best way to get into the NBA, whatever. Maybe they get Fielder, maybe they don't. But I think Oogie is a big key. We saw Rink Mass come back after an injury and have a year that got helped get Nebraska into the Sweet 16. I think Oogie could do something similar at Nebraska, because I think Nebraska is going to have more talent next year than they did this year.
Yeah, but Oogie's not having a surgery where they replace the ligaments, and
but
he's
backs,
got a year.
Man.
The backs are so touchy.
Yeah.
There is some, I'm going to call it breaking news, minor breaking news. So I feel the need to get the Gorilla Tape out and fix it. Just announced that Illinois State transfer Tyreek Coleman has scheduled visits to the following schools, and I believe it's his final 4. Utah State, Iowa, Kansas State, and Nebraska. He will be in Lincoln Tuesday and Wednesday. At Illinois State as a freshman last year, the 6'2" guard shot 41.6% from 3, averaged 10 points a game, just under 3 rebounds, 1.8 assists, 1.6 turnovers. Did average about a steal a game as well, though. So shot over 50% from the field, 70% from the line, but doesn't necessarily look like he is a point guard. But another guy that throws lasers. With Sam Orm, I believe we've got one. We already know what we've got in Price. If Connor Essegian gets back to kind of some early career form, 3-point shooting wise, if Oogie is healthy, I don't know. I just like this. Colin Rice coming in. Colin's a guy that dropped 50 earlier this year. Yeah. Just a side note, a guy that is going to announce his commitment. A lot of people feel like it's going to be LSU. I still think Nebraska basketball and Fred Hoiberg's system is the X factor on why Ahmad Hudson could choose Nebraska.
But his dad went to LSU.
I don't care. If he's not sold.
And he's more of a football player, it sounds like, than a basketball player.
I get it. However, he's not much of a basketball player. He's not whatever. He was the Louisiana Mr. Basketball this year. He was just named earlier this week. I'm just saying.
To a certain degree, Sam Orm, I really like him. The thing that I don't see on the roster next year, especially now that Burke is gone, is a Rink Mask, a guy that can do everything. You can't facilitate the offense through any big man that I currently see on the roster. Orm, certainly not that.
I think they need 2 more.
Oogie is not really a facilitator. He's a shooter from everything I've heard. They're going to have a true point guard, is what I'm saying next year.
If they don't get enough pieces that are Jamarcus Lawrence and Sam Hoiberg type-esque players, to the point where you've got guys that, and remember, when Fred has had true point guards at Nebraska, I'll be honest, we haven't been that good. Now, a lot of it was, no offense to
Derek Walker and Rink Mask,
to Cam Mack and Alonzo Verge, and even Raleigh Wooster. I mean, I get it. You guys were true point guards, and we were truly not great teams. So I'm all in favor of guys that can. I don't care. I don't think we need a true point, but we do need somebody that can facilitate at a high level that is going to be in your front court.
Yeah, Jamarcus certainly wasn't a true point. And there were times where Rink ran the point. There were times that he did not run the point. There were times that Sam ran it, that Jamarcus ran it. There were times that Burke brought the ball up the floor. That's why I think I don't know that Nebraska's completely out of it with Burke. If he sits in the portal for another week, and it's like the pretty prom girl that hasn't gotten an invitation to the prom yet. She might just go with the next call there. I mean, if you call her and she's available, she might say yes, just because she hasn't gotten an invitation yet. She's waiting for a better offer than you, but if it's late and the dance is about to start, maybe Burke comes back to Nebraska.
Interesting analogy, but I get your point. I
don't
like
know.
it.
It may not have made any sense to anybody listening, but I do think there's a chance. And don't forget about this. We talk a lot about the portal, but the portal didn't do a lot for Nebraska last year.
Aside from Price Sanford. I mean, you did get the best player on the team.
Price Sanford was the best player on the team. So I shouldn't, but they failed in some ways to get the power forward they wanted. Garcia had some injuries coming in. I think Kendall Blue, they expected much more from. Jamarcus Lawrence was a transfer, but not really, because he was already here.
And it's so frustrating with Jamarcus too, with the way the season ended for him. And for the team as a whole, I think a healthy Jamarcus Lawrence helps us in that Iowa game. And not only that one, but it also helps us in the game at Iowa. Because, I mean, he was not healthy. He was playing through injuries that I mean, you just sit there, you just tip your cap, walk up, shake his hand, and say, I have no idea how you did it. But, I mean, for him to play as well in as many minutes as he did down the stretch, as banged up as he was, knees, elbows, everything. I mean, I don't know. I wish the injury bug would not have bitten Nebraska as much as it did this last year.
Yeah, what you hear about Price and, Burke the year before, I bet there were other things that we never knew about.
Yeah, sports hernia.
Yeah,
so
I mean, not just Sanford, but there were other guys suffering from injuries that we never knew about.
Yep.
It's a long season, and Nebraska was playing 6 guys or maybe 7 at the most for most of the year. So guys were playing with injuries that we didn't know about.
Couple of huge developments. Again, we're breaking some news here, so I'm fixing it for you. Former Nebraska guard Quentin Rimes has announced he is transferring to Fresno State. And a big-time development in Madison, Wisconsin. Chris McIntosh is set to leave as the AD for a role in the Big Ten offices. He's the one that fired Paul Christ and hired Luke Fickell.
Okay.
So this is there's been some comparisons to Steve Peterson and Nebraska and just poorly led athletic director choice. Bottom line is Wisconsin seems to be doing things that Nebraska did 20 years ago.
Well, you're hearing a lot of unhappiness from Iowa. I believe they're bringing in like 88 new football players, half their female, half their women's basketball team seems to be leaving. Athletic directors have a tough job, but now in today's day and age, when you don't have any money to give players and they're asking for money, it makes it tough.
It does, but in Wisconsin's case, this had nothing to do with paying players. This had to do with you fired a really successful coach that bought into the way things work in Madison, Wisconsin, and you brought in a guy that everybody but you went, that's a dumb hire.
Yeah. Well, that's not an easy gig. Nebraska has not, what was the greatest athletic director of all time at Nebraska? Bill Byrne.
And who's literally who's the best at AD to me in the country today? His son, Greg.
Yeah. The Byrne family is pretty good at athletic directing. But Nebraska, Bob Devaney, Bill Byrne, and then crickets. And maybe it'll work out with the current athletic director. I think it very well could. I think he knows his stuff. But that's not an easy job when you're trying to balance finances and manage coaches and try to predict which coach will succeed and because some of what I always hear about coaches is he's a jerk. He treats his players horribly. But if you look around college football or basketball, the best coaches tend to be that way. Kurt Cignetti doesn't seem like the most lovable guy in the world. He wins.
Yeah.
And it's just, talk to a lot of people about Tom Izzo. Not the nicest guy in the room all the time. He wins. Mike Krzyzewski, Bobby Knight, he comes from that tree. From what I heard, Mike Krzyzewski did a lot of things that would curl your hair. And you don't have curly hair.
I do.
You do have curly hair?
But yeah.
Well, at the end of it.
Yeah.
I had curly hair way back in the day. It's a good show. Big thanks to our guests. Stephen M. Sipple was just on. We had Andy Markowski earlier, BC of Husker 24/7. We talked a lot of Husker baseball. Even though they didn't win today, they did take one from Oregon in the series. A lot of transfer portal talk. And I'm sure there'll be more to come next week. I'm guessing Nebraska will have 2 more players from the portal that we can talk about next week.
Hopefully.
We can do that. I'm leaving. You're leaving.
Yep.
Mike Melby, Tom Stevens, Husker Rewind. We'll see you next week. Bye-bye.
See you.